Alex, I was out in the shed yesterday just staring at the electric meter. It was spinning so fast I thought it might actually achieve liftoff. Between the dust collector screaming and the welder drawing enough juice to dim the lights in the next county, I started thinking the sun is just sitting up there giving it away for free.
Giving it away for free? Tiger, every time you find a free source of something, I end up helping you haul 3 tons of scrap metal or rewiring a circuit you nearly vaporized. Solar isn't exactly plug and play when you're trying to run a 3 horsepower table saw.
That's the thing though. Everyone thinks you have to go full Moonbase Alpha and spend $40,000 to get started. But I've been digging into the guts of this stuff. It's like joinery. If you understand the physics of how the pieces lock together, the rest is just keeping your fingers out of the blades. I want to talk about actually harvesting that light for the Tiger Den.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but let's keep this grounded. No tiger science where you explain voltage using a metaphor about sourdough starter. Give me the real breakdown. If a maker wants to stop cutting checks to the power company, where does the journey actually begin?
It begins with the 4 pillars. If you're building a shed, you need a foundation, walls, a roof, and a door. Solar is the same. You've got your panels, your batteries, your controller, and your inverter. If you miss one, you aren't making power. You're just decorating your roof with expensive glass.
Most people get the panels. Those are the big blue or black rectangles that make neighbors ask questions. But the rest of that box, the brain part, that's where people get squirrely.
And that's where the trouble usually brews. See, the panels are just the mouth. They eat the sunlight. But the electricity they produce is DC, direct current. It's raw. Most of our shop toys, the drills, the lathes, the fancy espresso machine you insisted we put in the break room, they want AC, alternating current.
Right, so the inverter is the translator. It takes that raw DC and turns it into the 110 or 220 volts our tools actually understand. But what about the controller? You mentioned that was the brain.
Think of the charge controller as the bouncer at a club. Your solar panels are the crowd outside trying to push in. Your battery is the club. If you let everyone in at once, the battery gets overwhelmed, heats up, and basically decides to retire early. The controller makes sure the power flows in at a rate the battery can handle. Without it, you'll cook your batteries faster than a cheap steak on a hot engine block.
Speaking of batteries, I saw you looking at some old car batteries in the corner of the shop last week. Tell me you aren't planning on using those.
Guilty as charged. I had a moment of weakness, but that's a classic rookie move. Using a car battery for a solar setup is like using a sprinting horse to pull a plow. A car battery is designed to give one massive, heart-stopping burst of energy to start an engine, and then it spends the rest of the day being recharged by the alternator.
And solar isn't a sprint.
Exactly, it's a marathon. You need deep cycle batteries. These are the marathon runners. They're designed to be drained down low and then slowly filled back up over and over. If you use a car battery, it'll work for a week and then it'll just give up the ghost. It'll have the capacity of an AA battery within a month.
So we're looking at lead acid or the fancy lithium stuff everyone on the internet is shouting about?
Lithium is the goal, honestly. LiFePO4, lithium iron phosphate. It sounds like a tongue twister, but it's the gold standard. They're lighter. You can drain them almost to zero without hurting them, and they last for years. Lead acid is cheaper up front, but they're heavy as lead, shocker, and they're finicky. They're like a pet that needs constant attention and a very specific diet.
Okay, so we've got the panels eating sun, the controller managing the flow, the battery holding the juice, and the inverter turning it into tool-ready power. But Tiger, you're a guy who likes to over-engineer. How does a normal person figure out how big this stuff needs to be? I don't want to be mid-cut on a piece of walnut and have the saw die because a cloud drifted by.
That's the math part that makes people's eyes go misty. But it's just basic arithmetic. You have to speak the language. Volts, amps, and watts. I always think of it like plumbing. Volts is the water pressure. Amps is the flow rate. How much water is actually moving. And watts? That's the total power. Volts times amps equals watts.
So if my sander says it's 5 amps and it's a 120-volt tool, that's 600 watts?
Look at you. You're practically a journeyman. Yes. Now, if you want to run that sander for an hour, you've used 600 watt hours. To make that work, your battery bank needs to hold more than 600 watt hours, and your panels need to be able to put that many watts back in during the day.
But wait, if I have a 100-watt solar panel and I need 600 watts for my sander, does that mean I need 6 hours of perfect sun just to sand for 1 hour?
Now you see the catch. Solar is a game of patience and storage. It's about filling the reservoir while you're dormant so you can open the floodgates when you're working. Most people underestimate how much they use. They think, oh, I'll just get a little camping panel. Then they plug in a miter saw, and the inverter just screams in agony before shutting down.
I've heard that scream, usually followed by you yelling something about the ghost in the machine.
Hey, that was a specific incident involving a vintage drill press and a very humid Tuesday. Don't pin that on me.
Since we're talking shop, let's talk aesthetics and efficiency. I see some panels that look like blue graph paper and some that are pure, deep black. Is that just a fashion choice for the roof, or does the color actually matter?
It's not just for looks, though the black ones, the monocrystalline, do look pretty sharp. They're made from a single crystal structure. They're more efficient, especially when space is tight. The blue ones, polycrystalline, are made from fragments. They're like the OSB of the solar world. They work well, they're cheaper, but you need more of them to get the same punch. If you've got a massive barn roof, go blue and save the cash. If you're trying to power a tiny shed, go black.
And what about placement? I see people putting these things in the shade of a tree and then wondering why their phone won't charge.
Oh, the shade is the silent killer. It's not just that the shaded part stops working. In some older panel designs, one leaf over a single cell can choke the performance of the whole string. It's like a kink in a garden hose. You want them facing south, if you're in our neck of the woods, at an angle that matches your latitude. I once saw a guy mount his panels flat on the ground because he didn't want to mess with the wind. Within an hour, they were covered in grass clippings from his mower. Not his finest hour.
I can imagine. Okay, so we've got the hardware sorted. But let's talk about the shop disaster potential here. What's the biggest don't when you're actually hooking the wires up? Because knowing you, there's a story about a spark that turned your eyebrows into carbon.
Don't ever, and I mean ever, hook the panels to the controller before you hook the battery to the controller.
That sounds oddly specific. Why?
Because the controller needs to wake up and see the battery first so it knows what system voltage it's dealing with. Is it 12 volts, 24, 48? If you blast it with 40 volts from the panels while it's still trying to figure out its own name, you can fry the motherboard. It's like throwing a bucket of ice water on someone while they're still in a deep sleep. They're going to wake up, but they aren't going to be happy about it.
See, this is why people pay installers. It feels like one wrong move and you're turning your shop into a very expensive campfire.
It can feel that way, but honestly, if you respect the current, it's no more dangerous than a table saw. You just have to use the right wire gauge. That's another thing. People try to use thin little lamp cord to move 50 amps of current. The wire gets hot, the insulation melts, and suddenly you have a heating element in your wall where you definitely didn't want one.
So, use thick wires, follow the order of operations, and don't let the grass clippings cover the panels. Is it actually worth the investment for a hobbyist? Or is this just a way for us to feel like we're living in a survivalist movie?
A bit of both, maybe. But there's a certain soul-deep satisfaction when the sun is beating down on the roof and you hear that hum of the lathe, knowing that every shaving you're making is being powered by the sky. No bill, no coal, no noise, just you, the wood, and the photons.
I'll admit, that does sound pretty poetic, even for a guy who once tried to use a leaf blower as a forge bellows.
Hey, that worked for 3 minutes.
Okay, give us the takeaway. If I'm a maker and I'm standing in my shop right now, looking at my power bill and then looking at my roof, what's the first realistic step?
Start small. Don't try to power the whole house on day one. Get a single 100-watt panel, a decent MPPT controller. That stands for maximum power point tracking. It's the smart kind of brain, and one good battery. Use it to power your lights and charge your cordless tool batteries. Once you see the lights kick on and realize you aren't paying a dime for them, the solar bug will bite you. You'll be looking at every flat surface you own, wondering how many cells you can fit on it.
Just stay away from my car roof, Tiger. I know that look in your eye.
No promises. But seriously, the real lesson here is about independence. As makers, we love being able to build our own furniture or fix our own machines, taking control of the energy that runs those machines. That's just the natural next level. It's about building a shop that breathes with the world.
Well, I'm sold. But if I come in tomorrow and you've replaced the shop floor with solar tiles, we're going to have a talk.
Deal. Now let's go see if that battery bank we set up is full. I've got some scrap maple that isn't going to turn itself.